Now, the Electoral Commission has embarked on preparations to fill the vacant position of the Kampala Lord Mayor after it fell vacant following Erias Lukwago's impeachment on Monday. This comes a day after Kampala Capital City Authority withdrew Lukwago's benefits despite a court injunction. On Newsnight, we examine the battle between the central government and the Lord Mayor Erias Lukwago and how we got here. Welcome to Newsnight. Andrew Mwenda, many thanks for joining us. CEO of the Independent, researcher, of course, seasoned journalist, and the old man of the clan. Andrew, many say...
You are coming up now.
I'm learning. Many say that Lukwago should have clearly seen, even way before he became Member of Parliament and got an interest in running for mayor. As Member of Parliament, they drafted this law, the KCCA Act. But way before that, we had the crisis between, of course, in 1998, I think, and that was when Sebagala trounced a movement cadre, Christopher Iga. The writing was on the wall for Lukwago, that this would actually be a hard ride.
No, it was not inevitable that the central government and Lukwago would fight. Remember that historically, since Christopher Iga, KCC has been under a mayor who has been from the opposition.
Yes.
Sebagala, then Sebana Kisto, then Sebagala again. So it is not true that historically NRM has a culture of removing mayors of Kampala who are not from NRM. Two, remember that we have very many districts which are led by opposition politicians. Gulu district a few years ago, for 10 years, was led by Nobat Mao. Nobat Mao worked with all NRM people, Brigadier General,
even within his own council.
General, yes. Otema, Charles Otema. All these Enganas, he worked very well with them. Even NRM council members, he worked with them. So the question is, why did Lukwago fail to work with the government?
Right, and why is that?
You see, and I visited Lukwago today, and we had a long discussion, and I discussed this with him. You see, there are two aspects of Lukwago's political career. One, there is Lukwago, the opposition activist. That opposition activist
that was built through his university life as a member of UID,
also as a member of parliament, an opposition member of parliament, but
Uganda
also as an activist
student on
the street who demonstrates. Let me tell you, the strategy of BSJ, which I disagree with, is to go on the street, instigate police to crack down on you, and the police tends to be violent, generate news headlines. Ladies and gentlemen, you may disagree with Museveni 100%, and I share 99% of the disagreements Ugandans have with Museveni. That is not a strategy for building opposition. It is a strategy for keeping BSJ on the newspaper headlines and Lukwago. It's not a strategy for building an opposition party. It is not even a strategy for building any form of support. Because if you want to win a constituency, let me say teachers, let me say farmers, let me say businessmen, do you call a rally to win different constituent groups that have serious grievances with the government? Even if they are students, you need to go and meet them in small groups and be able to caucus with them. And this is what Vidandisal is trying to do and Muntu. So that is one. Two, Lukwago's major weakness, I felt, because Lukwago is a public-spirited individual. He cares about this country. He strongly believes in democracy. He believes that there should be accountability at KCCA, that the executive director should be subject to political oversight from the council and from the mayor. All that is okay. But there is a difference between an elected mayor who is a chief executive of the city and an opposition activist. You see, when you're elected to a position of managerial and responsibility and political leadership, now you have to lead a team of people who are supposed to deliver on development projects. How you approach politics is very different from when, hold a second, Maurice, from when you're an opposition politician. Because upon his election, I felt, Lukwago was invited by Museveni. He refused to go because he said, if I appear with Museveni anywhere, shaking his hand or in a meeting with him, my base, my supporters will say I have been bribed. Lukwago has been very afraid of being perceived to have been compromised by Museveni, so he cannot relate to Museveni. Lukwago is now being blackmailed by his base because any attempt to reach out to the other side, you see, you cannot be a mayor. And first of all, as mayor, he's supposed to exercise political oversight over the expenditure of the city. Yes. Two, he's supposed to develop policies and programs which the executive director is supposed to implement.
Yes.
Now, if you say you're not going to work with the government, the president, and his cabinet. Tell me, Maurice, how do you achieve your goals as mayor?
But he says his hands were tied. He has said on several instances that his hands, even at the council, were tied. That for him to actually call council, he has to actually probably consult the executive director. And at some point, the executive director did write and say they were holding many council meetings, which was not sustainable with the KCCA budget.
Already your question, Maurice,
yes, but
already your question is contradictory. Let me tell you.
Why would you hold him from holding council meetings, which is his role, because of budget?
Let me now explain to you. Mr. Lukwago and those council members are friends. They are personal friends. Don't be lied to. He comes from a
He has members of opposition in council.
NRM has 17 members in the council.
19 maybe. Yes.
Let's say 18 members. Yes. 2 are pro-NRM allied to, independent allied to NRM.
Yes.
Then you have DP has 6 and then whatever has 1 or 2. There's an independent who's allied to DP. But the bottom line is this. Many of those council members, together with Lukwago, last year, passed the vote of no confidence against who? The executive director. Don't you remember? Yes. So he was working with them. They were his allies. The bottom line is this, that I think that Lukwago, for me, I give you advice as a friend. When you are an opposition activist, that is very different. How you manage your relations with the government is like the message is doing. You can continue with the message's path. But if you become a chief executive of a city, a district, you realize you have to get money from government. You have to relate to the president. You have to relate to his ministers. Then you stand at the rally and say, these people in the government are thieves. These are thugs, as Message keeps saying. These are criminals. These people belong to ICC. Let me ask you, Maurice, is that a kind of language that fosters understanding and an ability for people to communicate? And let me tell you this, whatever. I have interviewed many opposition members of parliament. If you go to that parliament, even people like Amama Mbabazi, the late Eria Kategaya, so many other people are willing to listen to the views of the opposition. People are open. There are many people in NRM who may be extremists, but there are many NRM ministers who think the voice of the opposition should be listened to. Advice, if it is given constructively, backed with facts and research, it will be done. I can vouch for Mr. Yoweri Museveni. Andrew Mwenda, I am one of his leading critics. But each time I have sought audience.
Many doubt that these days. Many think you've been bought in the pocket of government.
Exactly. You know why they think that? Yes. Because if they dealt with him the way I would deal with him, they would be bought. So they are reflecting their personal character on me. But let me tell you this, Maurice. Me, I have related with Museveni for many years. He has never given me 1 shilling. I have eaten his food at his house. I can agree and tea. He has never given me 1 shilling.
All right.
So the bottom line is this, that if you go to Museveni, I have taken to him issues where I have done my research and I have facts to back it, and I've said, Mr. President, this is where I think this is the decision.
And he has listened.
In 100% of the cases,
he
has agreed and taken action.
All right, Andrew, let's discuss this finally, very quickly. The whole scenario around the executive and leadership here in Kampala, the KCCA, many would argue, and I was reading through the past history with KCCA, and we have here, there is word that the mayor should have actually read the times, that the tides had changed. You had a council that was now over 55% NRM, which was not the case in the past. You had even leadership, even in here in the city, including some mayors, some of the division mayors, and including members of parliament. You had a divided city, a city that could elect an opposition. I see they're playing pictures of you meeting Lukwago today, by the way. So I just want to be sure that you can tell. The people believe that you were meeting him today. You had a city, you have a city now where you actually have a council that is pro-NRM, but run by an opposition mayor. He should have read the times. And many will argue that he could have easily said...
Maurice, that is even my point. That I don't think that the problem is that the council was dominated by NRM people, because even those NRM people are close friends of Lukwago and they are willing to work with him. Do you see? And I suspect that Jen from CC has her own weaknesses. Perhaps we should discuss them another day. But even Jen from CC would have worked with Lukwago. Lukwago failed to distinguish the conduct of an opposition politician who is an activist demonstrating on the streets and the conduct of a chief executive of a city. But Lukwago, let me first of all tell you, if you read the law, the powers of the mayor have not been changed. The powers of the mayor are equivalent to the powers of a minister. The powers of the executive director are equivalent to the powers of a permanent secretary. A permanent secretary is an accounting officer, so they handle money. But the policy making, process and the political oversight over the implementation of policy and the spending of money is still vested in the mayor and the council. So it is not true that the powers, this new law takes the powers of the mayor. 2, it is also not true that if you disagree with the NRM and belong to different political parties, NRM cannot work with you. That is false. Museveni has been able to work with the Konyi's people, former enemies, UPDA, PP, UPA, very many rebels who have fought this government. Museveni has been able to work with many people he has disagreed with. You can criticize him on very many things, whether on his toleration of corruption, of incompetence, of nepotism. I will stand with everybody to criticize Museveni on those 3 things. But on the fact that Museveni can transcend his partisan bias and reach out to a person who he does not agree with, that record he has it. I am a living example.
All right.
So Lukwago's failure was,
yes,
and I hope he takes this lesson, that a chief executive is like, you are now in a management position. To be in a management position, you cannot be a manager of a city. At the same time, you are every day on the street fighting police, demonstrating. And his inability to outgrow activism was his biggest liability.
All right, many thanks, Andrew Mwenda, for that.
The old man of the clan.
And that was Newsnight.